Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
How many times today, just today, did you shrink yourself? Maybe you were in a conversation and you had something important to say, but you swallowed it. Maybe someone asked how you were doing and you said fine, when the truth was so much heavier than that word. Maybe you looked in the mirror this morning and instead of seeing who you are, you started cataloging everything you think you're not. If any of that feels familiar, this video is for you. Because somewhere along the way, most of us learned a very dangerous lesson that who we are, as we are, is not quite enough. That we need to be quieter, more agreeable, less difficult, more grateful, less too much. And we internalized that lesson so deeply that we stopped even noticing when we were doing it. We just adjusted, accommodated, made ourselves smaller to fit into spaces that were never built for the full version of us. Today, we're talking about that. About the quiet, exhausting habit of asking for permission to exist as yourself. And more importantly, about what it looks like to finally stop. If you are a woman in your 50s, 60s, or 70s, I want you to know something first. You have lived through decades of being told what a good woman looks like. A good mother, a good wife, a good daughter, a good employee, a good neighbor. The list is long and it is exhausting, and almost no one on that list asked you what YO needed to feel good. You have given so much of yourself. Your time, your energy, your dreams, sometimes your health, to make sure the people around you were okay. And somewhere in the middle of all that giving, you may have lost track of who you actually are underneath all those roles. That is not weakness. That is not failure. That is what happens when a woman spends decades being told that her worth lives in her usefulness to others. But here is what I also know about you. You are wiser now than you have ever been. You have seen enough of life to know what matters. You have survived things that would have broken a younger version of you. And there is something stirring in you. Maybe it has been stirring for a while. That is asking a different kind of question now. Not am I enough for them, but am I being honest with myself? That question is not selfish. That question is sacred. And it is the beginning of everything. The first thing I want you to understand is this. The reason you learn to ask for permission to be yourself is not because there is something wrong with you. It's because at some point in your life, it was not safe to just be you. Maybe as a child, expressing your real feelings led to punishment or rejection. Maybe in your marriage or your workplace, your authentic opinions were dismissed or used against you. Maybe you grew up in a culture that had very clear, very rigid ideas about what a woman was allowed to want, feel, or say. So your nervous system did what nervous systems do. It adapted. It learned, if I adjust myself, make myself smaller, more palatable, less threatening, I stay safe. I stay loved. I stay included. Psychologists call this fawn response. It is a trauma response, just like fight or flight. And like all survival strategies, it worked until it didn't. Because the problem with spending your whole life asking for permission is that eventually you don't even know what you would do if someone said yes. You've been so focused on managing other people's reactions to you that you've lost touch with who you actually are when no one is watching. The cage kept you safe, but it also kept you from flying. Understanding this, really sitting with it, is not about blame, not toward others, and not toward yourself. It is about recognition. Because you cannot change a pattern you think is just who you are. The moment you see it as something you learned, you open the door to something different. I want to say something that might feel a little uncomfortable at first. Other people's discomfort with the real you is not your problem to solve. I know. That goes against almost everything we were taught. We were taught to smooth things over, to not rock the boat, to consider how others will feel before we open our mouths. And there is a version of that which is just kindness. Consideration, empathy. Those are good things. But there is another version of it the version most of us are actually living, where we have made ourselves entirely responsible for how other people feel, where we edit ourselves before we even speak because we're already managing someone else's reaction. Brené Brown talks about this in her research. She found that the people who lived with the most joy and connection were not the people who were the most careful. They were the people who were willing to be seen, fully seen, even when that meant some people wouldn't like what they saw. Think about a woman you know. Maybe you've met her, maybe she's someone you admire from a distance, who just says what she thinks, who disagrees without apologizing for it, who takes up space without seeming to wonder if she has the right to. What do you feel when you see her? Maybe a little envy, maybe a little admiration, maybe a little relief, because she's doing what part of you has always wanted to do. She is not being rude. She is not being selfish. She is simply not outsourcing her self-worth to other people's approval. And that is a skill you can learn too. Being yourself will disappoint some people, but hiding yourself is disappointing you every single day. Here's something that surprised me when I first came across it in Brené Brown's work. Authenticity is not something some people have and others don't. It is not a personality type. It is a practice. Which means you don't have to wait until you feel completely confident. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to suddenly become a different person. You just have to start making small, daily choices to show up a little more honestly. Let me give you a picture of what this actually looks like. It looks like a woman in her 60s who has spent 40 years saying yes to every invitation because she didn't want to seem antisocial, who finally, one Tuesday afternoon, sends a text that says, "I love you, but I need a quiet evening at home. Can we reschedule?" And then she closes her phone, sits in her own living room, and feels something she hasn't felt in years. Something that feels a lot like peace. It looks like a grandmother who has been holding a painful opinion about a family situation for 5 years, who finally, gently, says it out loud at the dinner table, and discovers that the world does not, in fact, end. That some people nod. That even those who don't agree still love her. It looks like a woman who looks at her own reflection and, instead of immediately finding fault, pauses and just looks and says quietly, "I have had a hard life and I have shown up for it." That deserves some respect. None of these are dramatic. None of them require a grand announcement or a confrontation or a complete personality overhaul. They are just small moments of choosing yourself. And those small moments accumulated over time become a life that actually feels like yours. There is a fear that lives underneath the habit of permission seeking, and I want to name it directly, because it deserves to be spoken out loud. The fear is this: if I stop adjusting myself to fit what others need me to be, if I start taking up more space, saying no more often, expressing what I actually think and feel, the people I love will leave. They will love me less. They will not know what to do with the real me. That fear is real, and it comes from real experiences. Most of us have, at some point, been punished for being too much, too emotional, too opinionated, too needy, too quiet, too loud to ourselves. But here's the distinction that changes everything. The people who needed you to be less were not safe people. They were not people who were capable of holding the full weight of who you are. And their inability to do that says nothing about your worth. Think about the relationships in your life where you feel most at ease, where you can say the wrong thing and it's okay, where you can cry without being managed, where you can disagree without it becoming a crisis, where silence doesn't feel loaded. In those relationships, you are not performing. You are not editing. You are just there. And you are loved anyway. That is what genuine connection feels like. And it is only possible when both people are willing to be real. When you begin to show up more authentically, one of two things will happen with the people in your life. Either they will rise to meet the real you, and your relationship will deepen in ways you didn't think possible. Or they will struggle with it, and you will begin to see that the relationship was built on a version of you that no longer serves your life. Neither of those outcomes is a tragedy. Both of them are truth, and you deserve to live in truth. I want to speak directly to something I hear from women in this stage of life, and that is the belief, sometimes spoken, sometimes just quietly held, that the window has closed, that the time for becoming yourself was back in your 20s or 30s, and now it's just too late to change. I want to offer you a very different way of looking at this. The research on personality and identity actually shows that women in their 50s, 60s, and beyond often experience a profound loosening, a kind of freedom that younger women do not yet have access to. Because many of the social pressures that kept you performing, the need to be attractive to a partner, the need to prove yourself in a career, the need to parent in a particular way, those pressures have shifted. Some of them have lifted entirely. Which means that right now, at this exact stage of your life, you may be freer to be yourself than you have ever been, not despite your age. Because of it, there is a concept in psychology called the post-menopausal zest, a term first used by anthropologist Margaret Mead, describing the energy and clarity many women report in midlife and beyond, once the biological and social pressures of earlier decades begin to release. You have earned your opinions. You have earned your boundaries. You have earned the right to say, "I don't want to," without a 10-paragraph explanation. You have earned the right to change your mind, to try something new, to want something different, to outgrow people and places and versions of yourself that no longer fit. You have spent decades being shaped by the world around you, and you can spend the rest of your life, however many beautiful years that is, being shaped by yourself. The woman you are becoming does not need permission. She just needs you to stop asking for it. You have carried so much, for so long, for so many people. And today I want to ask you, not in a demanding way, but in the way of a friend who sees you clearly, I want to ask you to consider carrying yourself a little more gently, a little more honestly, a little more fully, not because you owe it to anyone, but because somewhere inside you, there is a woman who has been waiting. A woman who has a perspective worth hearing, desires worth honoring, stories worth telling, and boundaries worth keeping. A woman who does not need to earn her place in the room, who does not need to soften every sharp edge of herself just to be acceptable, who does not need the world's permission to take up space. She has always been there. Life got loud and she got quiet, but she is still there. And the beautiful, strange, unexpected gift of this season of your life is that you finally have the wisdom to hear her, and the courage, if you choose it, to let her speak. You do not have to change everything tomorrow. You do not have to make a declaration or burn anything down. You just have to make one small choice today to be a little more honest, a little more present, a little more you. That is enough. You are enough. And you always have been. Before I close today, I want to hear from you, because this is not a one-way conversation. This community is built on the idea that we grow together, that your words matter, and that what you share here helps someone else feel less alone. So in the comments below, I want you to write 4 simple words. I am reclaiming my peace. If today's message touched something in you, if something here felt true, write those words. Let it be your quiet declaration, not for anyone else, just for you. And for every woman watching this who needs to see that she is not alone in this feeling, I am reclaiming my peace. Go ahead, leave it below. And while you're there, take a moment to read what others have written. Because that is what this community is. Women holding space for each other, reminding each other of what we already know, but sometimes forget. If this video spoke to you, please share it with a woman in your life who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, because we are building something here. a space for real conversations about real life. For women who are done performing and ready to start living. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. You are worth it.